Ahoy, and welcome aboard the Afro Tales podcast. I am your Griot, Aman Mazingo, here to guide you through captivating tales rooted in the histories of indigenous and African descended peoples across the Americas and the Caribbean. But the journey does not end there. I, Chef, will share a delicious recipe inspired by the stories you have just heard. So, with no further ado, let us set sail on this new age of exploration. The Curse of Mamdlo. It is well known on the tropical islands that the water people are the creatures who dwell in the murky rivers and black creeks. They are the ones who protect the fishes and waters that flow through the dense forest and down steep mountainsides teeming with tree ferns. These creatures are the fairy maids and mermaids whose lives and powers are inextricably linked to the creatures of the forest. Pollute the waters, hunt down and harm the animals, and you'll find yourself at the mercy of Mamdlo. This is a story of one man who found out the hard way. Tomas of Mayo Village was a young man with ambitions beyond his 20 years of age. He'd grown up hearing stories about the merfolk, lore on the island of Trinidad. He'd been told about Mamdlo, whose name means water mother. Known as the fierce protector of the rivers, she is half woman and half sea serpent, and the islanders believe she will punish anyone who polluted the waters or harmed the fish. It is said that Mamdlo is the lover of Papa Boy, the man with the goat horns and hooves, who protect the forest and its animals. Together they rule over the wild creatures that blend between our world and theirs, the realm where spirits and magic coexist. Despite this belief, which had flourished from myths carried to the islands by enslaved Africans generations before, Tomas paid no attention to the warnings. He had made up in his mind that his fortune could be made by hunting and trapping the fish and forest animals. He knew that money could be made from those eager to buy. "I'm going to get rich real quick," Tomas would say to his friends as they hung out down by the river. "There's plenty of fish in these rivers and deer to hunt in the forest." He could see an abundance of the kingfisher birds and ducklings scurrying around. There were ripples of water made from all the fishes circling down below, and he began to plan how he'd capture as much wildlife as possible and sell it in the villages. His father and grandfather were seamen, taking their vessels out to sea at night. Wild fish and equally wild stories of creatures haunting the seas. They told Tomas that his ambitions were reckless and tried to warn him that seamen fished further out at sea for a reason. "You know these rivers are protected by Mamdlo." Grandfather, who was sipping rum on his veranda one night, leaned in to Thomas and said in a hushed tones, "You crave all and get none at all, my boy." But Thomas was of a new generation. He had courage and stubbornness jutting out from his young jaw. "Grandfather, I don't believe in any of that old-time foolishness," he replied. "I am a man of vision." I make my own destiny. Later that night, when the moon lit up the waters with its soft glow, Tomas laid his fishing traps in the river. He waded in and dropped his net filled with bait and tied the line to a huge rock on the edge of the riverbank. No one on land saw him come or go, and the next day his net was filled with shimmering fish, wriggling and recoiling as he pulled them in. Overjoyed at his bounty, Tomas sold the fish in the market the next day. People marveled at his plentiful catch. Fish with scales, the full spectrum of the rainbow. Bluefish, yellow-tailed snapper, silver tilapia. Word soon spread that Tomas sold the best variety of fish.
From where do you get your fish, Miss Jacobs? What a nice size they are.
Aunt Florrie licked her fingers after eating some fried fish at her neighbor's house.
Why, thank you, Aunt Florrie. I travel all the way down to Mayo Village Market to buy from Tomas the fisherman. He has fish as long as your arm,
she exclaimed, stretching out her hands in exaggeration. People traveled from neighboring villages to buy from Tomas, and he continued to set his traps at night when he thought no one was around, except someone was. Mamdlo was biding her time down below the surface of the river. She sat in her underwater kingdom, resplendent with palaces of glittering coral reefs and seagrass. Fairy maids circled her golden throne, waiting to do her bidding. Mamdlo's eyes shone with vengeance. She cracked her long, blue serpent tail like a horsewhip, and soon chose one of her fairy maids to deliver a curse to Tomas.
Fairy maid, go and tell that greedy man to let my river be. There are plenty of fish in the ocean and plenty of fish in the sea. If I catch him anywhere near my riverbed, I'm gonna lash him for all eternity and make him wish he was dead.
That very night, when Tomas visited his spot by the riverbank, he saw the silhouette of a young woman with her back to him, lounging on the rocks. She was combing her thick locks of black hair with a golden comb lined with sparkling jewels that glinted at him through the darkness. He could not see her face, but his eyes traced the outline of her body, which curved down from her hips into the shape of a giant fishtail. He could barely believe his eyes. All of the stories his family had told him were true. Here was a fairy maid with precious jewels in her hand. His mind raced ahead to all of the wealth he could gain by capturing her. He approached as quietly as he could and held out his long fishing hook to grab her by the hair.
Stop where you are, Tomas of Mayo Village.
Her voice sliced through the air, halting his stride. She turned and held him in her steely gaze.
I come with a message from Mamdlo, protector of the rivers and all creatures below.
She delivered the curse and prepared to dive back into the river. Tomas did not care about the threat of Mamdlo. He was transfixed by the fairy maid and had to have her. He lunged at her with his fish hook, which grabbed onto her hair. He began to wind the hair tightly around his hook, and he walked towards her. In an instant, the fairy maid shapeshifted and transformed into a hissing, snarling black cat. With outstretched claws, she sprang onto Thomas's shoulder. He grabbed her by the body and was about to shove her into his bag when she shapeshifted again into a trickling stream of water that slid back into the river, fleeing right before his eyes. Tomas was furious with himself that he had not caught the fairy maid. He spent the next few days plotting about all the various traps he could lay.
Maybe I could lower a cage down into the river and she'll swim into it, he thought. I could hang a net over the trees, ready to drop if she sits on the rock down below.
He became obsessed with his new goal and focused on nothing else. He was oblivious to what was happening in his village. People were becoming sick. One by one, men, women, and children were finding themselves confined to the beds with a terrible fever. Soon, people in neighboring villages became ill, and the symptoms were similar. After eating a meal of fish, they felt violently sick, vomiting up all that they had eaten. Their next few days were spent with a raging fever of hot and cold chills. The sickness spread across the island, twisting and turning in the directions of the sea breeze. Shops and schools were closed, parks were empty, and the markets were soulless without the banter of bargaining villagers. Fishermen were the only sellers untouched by the illness. They sat under umbrellas on their stalls, sheltering them from the scorching sun. An abundance of fish left over at the end of each market day meant no money was made. No one was buying or eating fish. One evening, the fishermen gathered together by the seawall to discuss what could be done. The tide drifted in, bringing the salty air and gentle sounds of lapping waves to mingle with their terrified voices.
What are we going to do? Everyone who eats fish gets sick.
We're not sick. It can't be the fish.
There's a curse on us fishermen,
said one old man who had lived through many unexplained events.
Why would we be cursed? Who have we angered?
They cried. Many turned their backs and dismissed the old man.
My grandson, Tomas, has been fishing in the river, draining it of all the wildlife.
Suddenly, he had their attention as he reminded them of the curse of Mamdlo. Tomas waved his hand away when the men rounded on him, raising their voices and accusing him of bringing a curse upon all their heads.
You need to stop fishing in the river for all our sakes,
muttered his grandfather. The meeting came to a close with no resolution. Tomas stormed off with thoughts of the fairy maid filling his mind. The next morning, he set off early before sunrise while the red howler monkeys were bellowing in the trees. The sea was calm, and the dark, murky waters surrounded his tiny boat. With only a hanging light to forge his way in the darkness, Tomas headed toward a small lagoon where he thought something or someone was languishing on the rocks. His eyes had not deceived him. It was indeed the fairy maid who had crept out from the waterfall cave. He was overjoyed and quickly grabbed his long stick, which he fashioned into a harpoon with a sharp metal spear tied at the end. He stood up and threw the harpoon at the fairy maid's heart, piercing her naked flesh. Silence. And then the brittle crunch of her bones breaking under the weight of his weapon. Tomas lost his balance as the sea began to swirl around him. The calm waters were suddenly roaring with white-capped waves gathering pace in the distance. He grabbed onto the mast of his boat and as it rocked violently from side to side, then he saw her emerging from the depths of the sea. Mamdlo came charging toward him on the crest of a wave. Her long black dreadlocks were twisting and thrashing like vicious snakes around her head. Tomas closed his eyes and heard the deafening crack of a whip as her long serpent tail buffeted the sea.
Tomas, your ears are too hard, so now you gon' feel.
Mamdlo called out above the sound of the waves, reminding him that he refused to listen to her warning, and now he would pay the price. She raised up her heavy serpent tail and lashed it down upon his boat, splitting it into two. Tomas fell into the water, kicking his legs and fighting to reach the surface. He clutched a raft of floating wood as the waves battered him from every direction. Salt water poured into his eyes and lungs, stinging him with merciless venom. Mamdlo twisted her heavy tail around him, snapping his body into tiny splinters, which she threw to all corners of the island.
Since you ain't as you were, let you stay as you are,
she hissed before sinking back down to the depths of her underwater kingdom, carrying the lifeless body of the fairy maid with her. It is said that the curse was lifted from the island that day. Health came back to the people who had been eating the river fish, and trust was gradually restored in the fishermen and their bounty. Tomas's boat was never found, and he was never heard from again. Some say he found his fame and fortune elsewhere. His grandfather says that Mamdlo exacted her price for fouling the river and farming its creatures. I say, stepped on a pin, the pin bent, and that's the way the story went. The end. Well, wow. This is another great story from one of my favorite writers, Wendy Sharir. Comes from the book Caribbean Folk Tales, Stories from the Islands and the Windrush Generation. Mamdlo, or Mama Glow, I try to say Glow as best as possible, is a being that I have wanted to do a story on for a very, very long time. I just love her look, and I picture her, and I'm pretty sure everybody else does. I mean, some people say she's a mermaid, but even in the story, it's a serpent tail or serpentine tail that she has. So she's more like, if you guys know what a Naga is, I'm telling my age here. If you've seen The Golden Child, and you remember the lady behind the the shade was half woman, half snake. That's a Naga. So Mamdlo is a type of Naga, Naga, for anybody that wants to search it out. But she's a Caribbean one, from Trinidad. Specifically, you definitely find her stories in the Trinidad. She has another story, I believe, about her and a golden comb, and I think one about a golden table in Jamaica, which I will definitely try to find those and read them to you. This story, just speaks to me, my heart, in that people don't like to listen. My mom used to tell me, and you know, this saying is across the world at this point, that a hard head makes a soft rear end, even though she would, you know, use the other term for a donkey. You know what I mean? And, you know, that is very true about Tomas here. He was hard-headed. He thought he knew what was best and didn't want to listen to those that came before him. You know, we get told things by our parents. You know, we get told things by our parents about life and how things were when they were young. And, you know, I'll probably be saying the same thing to my kids and my grandkids. And we didn't listen. And my kids probably won't listen to me, and my grandkids won't listen either, or to them. And we just hope that when they go out and make the mistakes, as we have and as our parents did, that the mistakes aren't so bad that they can't be fixed. And I know that is, through the story, one of the messages. It's okay to go out and make a mistake, but try not to have the mistakes be so bad that you cannot recover from it. In this particular situation, Tomas went out a little too eager, didn't want to listen, and made a mistake. Then he was warned and was told how to fix that mistake, and then he didn't listen. So he paid the price for not listening, you know. And that's the way it goes sometimes. Sometimes when you don't listen, you only get one warning in life sometimes. And other times you don't get any warning at all. And that sucks. And it sucks bad. And I've seen, and we've seen, and, you know, throughout our lives and in the news and everywhere, where a mistake could not just ruin one life, but ruin multiple lives on both ends of the mistake. A wrongdoing can ruin lives on every aspect of the wrongdoing. No matter who the perpetrator was or the victim was, both sides can lose a lot. So I guess I'm just saying, think about your decisions out there. Think about not only how you can be affecting the world you live in, but just the lives of other people that you don't even know. And the lives of those that you do know. Because you don't know how your decision can bounce back on yourself and on your own family. So just be careful out there. It gets scary sometimes. So that's all I have for you today. Little somber, little solemn. Well, until next time, go see Chef. I'm sure he has a wonderful story. No, go see Chef. He has a wonderful recipe for you from Trinidad coming from this story. And, damn, that's not it. Go see Chef. I'm pretty sure he has a wonderful recipe inspired by today's story. And until next time, as always, thank you for coming on this voyage with me. Share with your family and friends. And as always, have a blessed day.
Welcome, my friends, to the Galley. I am your chef, and today we have a wonderful recipe inspired by the story you've just heard. Today, we will be creating chicken Pelau. Now, what do you need for this delectable recipe? 4 pounds chicken pieces, whole chicken cut up, thighs or drumsticks, washed and drained. 2 tablespoons green seasoning. 1 onion chopped. 2 tablespoons of minced garlic. 4 tablespoons of ketchup. Hot pepper to taste. Salt and pepper to season chicken. 2 tablespoons of oil. Half a cup of brown sugar. 4 scallions chopped. 1 stalk celery diced. 3 cups of parboiled rice washed and drained. 2 cups dry pigeon peas. 1 can rinse and drain. 1 medium carrot diced or half package peas and carrots. 1 red bell pepper. 10 thyme sprigs chopped. 1 can of coconut milk diluted with 3 cups of hot water, salt and pepper to taste. Now, how do we put this together? Easy. First, to prepare the chicken. If using a whole chicken, cut into 2-inch pieces. Wash with the juice or a lime or lemon and several changes of water. Drain well. To the chicken, add half of the green seasoning, reserving the other half. Half a onion, garlic, ketchup, salt, and pepper to taste. Mix well to coat the chicken with the seasonings. Marinate for at least an hour or overnight for best effects. Now, heat the oil in a dry, large, deep, heavy bottom pot or Dutch oven over medium heat. Add sugar and allow it to froth. Expand, bubble, and darken, but not black and smoky. If black, start over. Now, you immediately add the seasoned chicken, stirring frequently to coat about 5 minutes should do. Stir in the scallion, onion, remainder of the green seasoning, and celery. Cover and cook until 70% cooked, stirring occasionally about 15 minutes should do. Rinse rice under running water until water runs clear. Drain and add the rice to the pot along with the pigeon peas, carrots, chopped bell pepper, and cook, stirring for 3 minutes. Now, mix canned coconut milk with 3 cups of hot water and add to pot or enough liquid to cover by 1 inch. Season with salt and pepper to taste. Mix well. Bring to a boil. When
the liquid comes to a boil, reduce heat to low and simmer. Cover pot tightly with a cover and cook for about 30 minutes or until rice is cooked and all the liquid has evaporated. Stir midway to ensure that it is not sticking. Taste and add more salt if required. And that is it, my friends. Now, go. Make this recipe yours. And until I have another wonderful recipe for you, remember the warning from Mamdlo. Do not mess with the fish in high rivers. And until next time, my friends, as always, enjoy. And that brings an end to another voyage. May these tales inspire, connect, and nourish your soul, just as chef's dish fills your belly. Until next time, keep exploring, learning, and sharing the ancestors' stories. Fair winds and following seas.